Being needed often feels like love because, at a deep psychological level, humans are wired to seek connection, purpose, and reassurance that they matter. From childhood, we learn to associate care with survival. When someone needs us, it triggers the same emotional circuits that once told us we were safe, valued, and seen. That sensation can be powerful enough to masquerade as love, even when genuine mutual affection, respect, or emotional intimacy may be missing. From the very beginning of life, being needed is linked to attachment. As children, we survive because someone needs to care for us, and in turn, we learn that being responsive, pleasing, or useful helps maintain connection. If a caregiver smiles when we help, calms down when we behave a certain way, or withdraws affection when we don't, our brains quietly record a lesson. My value lies in what I provide. Over time, this belief can grow roots so deep that, as adults, we confuse being essential to someone's stability with being loved by them. Being needed activates a sense of purpose. It gives life structure and meaning. When someone depends on us emotionally, practically, or psychologically, it can feel like proof that we matter. Love, at its healthiest, includes mutual appreciation and care. But need feels louder. It demands attention. It makes us feel irreplaceable. And the idea of being irreplaceable is intoxicating, especially for people who have felt invisible, abandoned, or emotionally neglected in the past. There is also a biological element at play. When we help someone, support them, or rescue them from distress, the brain releases chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine rewards us with pleasure and reinforces the behavior, while oxytocin deepens bonding. The brain doesn't always distinguish between healthy attachment and emotional dependency. It simply registers closeness and reward. So when someone needs us intensely, our nervous system may interpret that chemical rush as love, even if the relationship is built more on imbalance than affection. For many people, being needed feels safer than being truly known. Love requires vulnerability. It asks us to show our fears, flaws, and emotional needs. Being needed, on the other hand, allows us to stay in control. If we are the helper, the fixer, or the strong one, we can avoid facing our own unmet needs. We become essential without having to be exposed. In that way, need can feel like love without the risk that love demands. Cultural narratives also play a role. Movies, stories, and social expectations often romanticize sacrifice. We are taught that love means giving endlessly, staying no matter what, and being someone's everything. The person who stays, who fixes, who holds the other together, is often portrayed as noble and loving. Rarely do these narratives question whether the relationship is mutual or healthy. As a result, many people grow up believing that exhaustion is proof of love, and being needed is evidence of emotional significance. Being needed can also soothe feelings of low self-worth. If someone struggles to believe they are lovable just as they are, being useful becomes a substitute for self. The thought pattern becomes, they may not love me for who I am, but they need me, and that means they won't leave. In this way, need becomes a shield against abandonment. As long as we are necessary, we feel safe from rejection. That safety can feel very similar to love, especially for those whose early experiences taught them that love is conditional. However, need and love are not the same thing, even though they can coexist. Love is rooted in choice. It involves two people freely choosing each other, again and again, without obligation or fear. Need is often rooted in lack. It can come from insecurity, fear of being alone, or inability to self-regulate emotionally. When a relationship is driven primarily by need, one person often carries more emotional weight, while the other becomes dependent. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment, burnout, and loss of self. Another reason being needed feels like love is that it creates a clear role. Roles simplify relationships. When you are the strong one, the responsible one, or the one who holds everything together, you know who you are in the dynamic. Love, on the other hand, is fluid and uncertain. It evolves. It asks both people to grow. For someone who feels anxious about change or rejection, a fixed role based on being needed can feel more stable than the unpredictable nature of love. Trauma can intensify this confusion. People who grew up in chaotic, emotionally unstable, or neglectful environments often learn to become hypertuned to others' needs. They may have learned that keeping the peace, managing emotions, or being useful was the only way to maintain connection. As adults, they may feel most comfortable in relationships where they are needed because that dynamic feels familiar. Familiarity can be mistaken for love, even when it is actually a repetition of old survival patterns. Being needed also feeds the ego in subtle ways. It reinforces the idea that we are important, capable, and strong. When someone says, "I don't know what I'd do without you," it can feel like a declaration of love, but often, it is a declaration of dependency. While that may feel flattering at first, it can quietly trap both people. One becomes afraid to leave because they feel responsible, and the other becomes afraid to grow because they rely too heavily on the relationship. Over time, relationships built mainly on need tend to stagnate. The person who is needed may feel drained, unappreciated, or unseen for who they truly are. The person who needs may feel powerless or afraid of independence. Love encourages growth, individuality, and mutual support. Need often discourages change because change threatens the dynamic. This is where the initial feeling of love can slowly transform into obligation or resentment. Learning to separate love from need requires self-reflection and emotional honesty. It means asking difficult questions. Do I feel valued for who I am, or only for what I provide? Am I choosing this relationship, or am I staying because I feel responsible? Can this person stand on their own, and can I? True love allows space for both people to be whole individuals. It does not rely on one person shrinking or overextending to keep the connection alive. It is important to acknowledge that wanting to be needed is not wrong, it is human. Feeling useful, supportive, and important in someone's life can be deeply fulfilling. The problem arises when being needed becomes the primary source of self-worth or the main reason a relationship exists. Love thrives when need is balanced with choice, respect, and mutual care. When someone begins to experience love without the pressure of being needed, it can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Healthy love does not demand constant sacrifice. It does not collapse if one person sets boundaries or focuses on their own growth. Instead, it adapts. It supports independence while maintaining connection. For someone used to equating need with love, this kind of relationship may initially feel less intense, but it is often more sustainable and deeply nourishing. Ultimately, being needed feels like love because it speaks to our deepest fears and desires, the fear of being abandoned and the desire to matter. But love, in its truest form, goes beyond necessity. It is not about being indispensable. It is about being chosen. It is not about proving worth through sacrifice. It is about being valued without conditions. When we begin to understand this difference, we open the door to relationships that are not just intense, but genuinely fulfilling.